Hi, and good evening to everyone. Welcome to my channel, and welcome to the review of Disclosure Day, the most amazing new movie coming out on the 12th of June, 2026, which is obviously put together, directed, and made possible by Steven Spielberg. So I'm going to do a couple of the stills from the movie trailers, and I'm going to put all of those onto the screen. And then I'm going to go through some of the areas that, as a remote viewer and someone who's been working in this industry now for must be at least probably about 50 years. It's a long time. I'm going to put together some of my comments and personal opinions around what I'm seeing in the trailer and why I think there are areas that are significant. So I'm going to need glasses for this. So there we go. So the first one is where the main individual is talking and doing the weather broadcast, and she has got a particular energy about her. And what's very interesting is that this actress must have spoken to somebody that was a person that could either be part of light language or part of the star language, or be able to bring through or bring forth a particular frequency, because she was really able to stand in front of the weather forecast area, and in the trailer she then starts to utilize both star language and light language, and having all of the clicks and the inner spaces of sine wave. And that's very key here, because it's the in-between spaces of the language that she's been able to push through. And I'll get a little bit more into that a bit later, but this was key for her, because if you've ever watched somebody who is bringing forth a star language or bringing forth a light language, or even those that you would see in a ministry situation where individuals are coming forward with speaking in tongues and how they're speaking in tongues, all of these are coming together in this particular movie. The Spielberg energy, I think he's been very good in being able to take threads of information and thread them together. Some of the big aspects are around, well, what if everything that has been told to us is not necessarily as it is or as it could be. You know, we have a lot of individuals that are saying, well, there's tic tacs, there's drones, there's UAPs, UFOs, USOs submerged in the oceans. This all comes to a crashing point in this particular movie. So I found it interesting that she was able to take their own acting skills and push it to the fore, but also undertake something that's very difficult to do, is to be able to speak, particularly sounds, clicks, and waves of energy or frequency. This is not an easy thing to learn, which is why when you reactivate your own star language or light language, it is not learning a language. It is just reactivating and remembering the language of your soul. So I thought I would put that up first, because this is like almost one of the first cells that you see that come up on the screen. Very, very key. She also has a particular role in as much as she carries her hand into one of the light areas. And because she's got this ability where she's connected to off-worlders, and I purposefully don't use the word alien because they don't like it. So I don't use that word. I've never used that word because, you know, since I had contact 60 years ago and have had the same contact for 60 years with the same beings, they're not particularly happy when they're being called aliens. They're just called off-worlders. Those that are not on this particular world with us, they're not on Gaia or on Earth. They're just a different type of race or being. So we just call them off-worlders. So bear with me on this one. So you can see in this particular frame, you can see she's actually very good, and she's able to think about how would she feel if she was shown this in real life. How would she feel if this happened to her? And you can see that coming through. She's able to portray that. Extremely good actress. And also some of the tech that you see in the trailer. And I'm pretty sure that Spielberg would have weaving and woven all sorts of tech into the production. There will be a lot of additional things that I'm pretty sure has not been shared in the trailer, just by the breadcrumb trails that are being left in this particular set of trailers. There's a breadcrumb trail. You can kind of see where he's going, but he hasn't let the cat out the bag, so to speak, which is awesome. So we have her holding on to this communication device, and it's all part and parcel of where the communication is coming in. And I think this might be just before the eye changes happen. So I see there's some questions. Question QQQ. Let me just put that one. Let me work out how to do it. Hold on a minute. Let me see. This one? Nope. It's not doing it. I'll go across and go and grab it somewhere. So please put QQQ in the questions so that I can see what your questions are. So let me see what this one is. So Aquana Healing, do you think Spielberg is in contact with the off-worlders? Is he one? In my view, I don't believe, looking at his energy, I don't think that he is one. I think that he has had contact. Yes, I do think he's had contact with off-worlders. I think that he's seen a lot. He's probably gone to some of the dumb bases, so the deep underground military bases. And I think that some of the physicists and scientists and others that have been working on these different types of technologies around the world, I think he's had contact with most of them. So, but I don't think necessarily that he is an off-worlder, because I think he would have had a very different energy. So that's just Shah. Thank you. And we've got from Jedno number 1. He says, I've read Dreamcatcher, the book by Spielberg. Very, very good. Makes you wonder what he has seen and been through. That's a really good catch there, Jedno number 1. I think that, the Dreamcatcher story around the Greys and around the changes and the areas within the Greys themselves where the particular energy is a catchy type of energy and moves from person to person and ends up with individuals being in lock-in syndrome. I think it's a key book. So that's a great catch there. Well done, Jedno. Yes, there is a symbology in Dreamcatcher as well as what he's doing now. So I think he's kind of trying to tell us something in a roundabout way. Just Charles is saying, oh, that's very nice. If anyone would like to send support for what I'm doing, I do have Buy Me a Coffee. Thanks for reminding me, Just Charles, because that's the things I always forget, I must admit. Sorry about that. So let's get back to the movie. So we've got also then another area that's really very good. And this is the little girl that plays, I think, a very important role in the movie itself. And part of that innocence within her comes through because she doesn't question, she just believes. And this is key with the energies, because you've also got the deer and you've got the cardinals, the red birds, the beautiful red birds. In England here, we don't have cardinals. So it is something very specific to the Americas. And the cardinals are these types of birds that have, and depending on which nation you speak to, pretty much across all the American Indian First Nations, most of the tribes will see, and those that even the Inuits as far up as different areas of the coast, they all have a similar feeling and understanding about the symbology around deer and cardinal birds. And that all of that shows that they feel that there is this an amazing synergy between spirit and the world of above, the great mother, and also with the earth. So the earth with the deer and also the birds with the great mother from source. So all of the symbology is coming through in the movie. We've also got the section that you're seeing now on the screen is where this little girl has got the deer that has come into her room. But also more importantly, if you have a look on the right-hand side of the frame, you'll see there's the cardinal, the red cardinal, really beautiful bird. And she is looking at both of them because she does acknowledge at a soul level and at her higher self that she is having some level of spiritual contact, both with the ancestors and her way forward. There is a spiritual way that this is coming through. And I think that the way that it's shot and the angle of the camera and how you're able to see the whole bedroom of the little girl, as well as her talking directly to the deer and talking directly to the cardinal, I think that's key. I'm not quite sure how the deer gets into the room or how that works. Obviously, this is just a trailer. So we will see more about that once we get to some of the greater detail. We've also got a section here, which I thought was very beautiful, is all the deer that kept coming towards the house. They are very telepathic, and it seems to me that the aspect of the spiritual side of a deer is key. So part of that frequency that we're going to be talking about in a bit is how that frequency relates to and resonates on a frequency level with the deer, with animals, other animals, and also specifically with birds. So I think that's definitely a key aspect. One of the other aspects also that I'm going to comment on is that there is a change in all individuals that have a level of contact. And when you have contact, there is something within the energy body and the values around the toroidal field, so your frequency, if you like, of your auric body, that does change. There is a pattern and there is a stamp of sorts. I'm not talking about being tagged. I'm not talking about being chipped. I'm not talking about, that you left with, injuries, etc. I'm talking about the frequency of the body, of the energetic body, the aura, and the frequencies around an individual. And many times I have seen individuals that have had direct contact, their eye color does change. And then after that, their eye color is not stable. So it changes. It can change from day to day. It can become a different shade. It can have gold flecks in it. It can have a different ring around it, which is exactly what we see here in this particular frame. We can see that the individual that has had contact and that is continuing to have contact, when contact is made directly with the top chakra points and the third eye chakra points, when that is then connected to the off-worldly presences, the eyes do change. And this is something that I think that Spielberg has put into this new movie, Disclosure Day. He's put it in there specifically because he must have at some point read a lot of the disclosure files, maybe the Blue Book files, and maybe read some of the accounts of individuals who have had direct contact and those who have had contact both with the negative species and the positive species. There are some traits and there's some experiences and some levels that are exactly the same, whether you're in contact with a negative set of beings or whether you're in contact with a positive set of beings that are just trying to assist and watch carefully and not actually interfere. So there's this particular aspect that I think is key. And I think that the main female lead also has a change, and she's able to shapeshift. So from that point of view, it's a very interesting one, because initially when she's standing up and doing the weather, she then changes. And what's key is we don't see the eyes change initially, but I think later on in the movie we probably will. But the key aspect is that she is able to transmute that energy through her body, through the human body and through the psyche of the human, and allow the clicks and allow the energetics of the like the sine wave. And it's spelled sine as not as in sign language, sine wave. And it's all about that frequency. It is very key to understand that this type of communication can happen to anyone. Over the last 50 years, I have participated in different types of site retrievals, or looked at individuals that had had some form of contact with off-worlders. And every person has been different, but every person that has had the contact has been able to vocalize and provide an overview of what they perceived, what they saw, what they felt, how they felt emotionally, and how their bodies had changed. So it does become a physical thing at a later stage. So for her, when you go and watch the trailer, you will see that she stands, and it's almost as though she had taken a large breath and allowed whatever was coming through to her to speak through her and be part of her. And that is, I think, a very strong message, where there's the tie-in between the psychic side of things and the connection between humans and off-worlders. Because we have such a high percentage of water, it makes it quite easy for those waves and frequencies to penetrate, and it makes it easier for us to be able to assimilate and decide and decipher what is coming through us. Some of the individuals that speak light language, which is similar to this clicking type language that the female star is speaking, some of those individuals, occasionally you will hear them, if you look for light language or star language across the internet or in YouTube, if you have a look for light language particularly, you will see, and you will notice, because it's very obvious, you will notice that specific race groups and beings speak and push the frequency through in a particular fashion. Some have a melodic harmonics that comes through as a wave, a very gentle wave, and also has a high frequency and a lower frequency that you don't hear. It's not perceptible and not audible at all. But every single one of the different races that are communicating with Earth peoples, they do have a different set of connections that start before the message comes through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain some of the aspects that I had done when I started, apart from the fact that there are lots of butterflies and symbols on the wallpaper. But I'm going to explain to you some of the discussion that I had with individuals today that were part of a group of individuals that have had a lot of discussion with off-worlders. And I'm going to explain to you what happens and why, and then hopefully some things will make a lot more sense. So the eye change is directly related to the download from the off-worlders and those two individuals that are on Earth. So we can see that that is part of the plan and the plot for Disclosure Day. Also, we see that those are converted into a light spectrum that is more, not noticeable, but more perhaps more comfortable for individuals that are off-world. Then I also know that the sine wave influences the bass lines in more of the sound changes by adding extra frequencies as the harmonics begin. They create a new sound, almost like a new sound of a new being, because it's not a language, it's just it's a sound. And that's where the hybrids are coming in. So we've had rules are slightly different. There's a possibility they could be, and this is where the new frequency. There are filters also add a look feel of, like when I looked at them on the screen, because we were testing the hedgehogs. Really, they were spiky hedgehogs, and the equipment was, you know, moving in such a way that it looked like a bunch of spiky hedgehogs. So when you look at that frequency, some of those frequencies, the spiky hedgehog has a different bend and the pitch is different in higher octaves. Even when moving or changing or decreasing the pitch of that frequency, all of those sine waves, they all meld together. And this is all part of this unusual frequency that we're seeing in the Disclosure Day movie. But what I will say is the language, and I'm going to call it loosely a language. And you will see there's little bits that come out of my mouth. It's just energy frequency. That's all. I'll blow them out as I need to. So the language is correct. The ET contact does push the sine wave sound. Specifically pre-contact. So in that, if you know, speak to the city, look up at the sky and send vibrations and energies out, you will contact to see up in May, like we used to see, like last year in May, with an amazing array of starcraft that appeared in Eastbourne in May. It's an film from GSEC, which is Danny Henderson, and I was very lucky in as much as I realized more, and we were looking out up to the sky, and we saw the crafts coming. We had graphs of that and a video. In probably a case session, I will show some of the footage that we've got, because it's really quite spectacular. See, contact. With a level of harmonics, each being does resonate with the subtle harmonics, and the distortion in sound is really noticeable. Just reading my notes. So all worlds, the master tune is the law of nature. So the birds particularly have an FM synthesis with a main carrier, which is the bass, and the modular. So those two act like a sound and a pulse, which is the type of light language, which looks, when you look at it at the screen, it looks like a shark's fin. It's got a shark's fin spiky bit, and it's subtle. It is subtle. But as the master harmonic and the marker for the FM synthesis, it is noticeable. So you've got a bass main carrier. So you have a bass main carrier, and then you get another set of harmonics on top of that, which then becomes the subtle, more recognizable, if you like. So in that star language, before that is sent to the third eye and then drawn down chakra, and those words are spoken, but just before those words or songs or frequencies, there is a buzz sound. There is also a frequency that moves up and down, and you start feeling that. And this then becomes slightly distorted. And then humans will hear the melody, but there's also, and this lies the rub, there is also a level of acoustic levitation that is embedded in the language that's coming out. So I'm very keen to understand with Spielberg whether, because we can't see this in the trailer, whether at any time in the movie is if there's a level of acoustic levitation that is happening. Because with acoustics and frequencies at a certain level, it can actually levitate items, including water, stones, all sorts of things, which is part of the way in which very large monuments and things around the world were created with acoustic levitation. So the brain can then fill in the gaps and allows the sine waves speech as the person that's doing the download, because it is a download, comes through the top chakra point and moves through to the throat and then comes out. So the downloader then has these blinks. They have a number of blinks, and I've noticed specifically with most light work and people that are speaking star language and that are allowing the downloads of the light language to come through. That then, as things happen, the human can and does engage and review that acoustic energy frequency literally in a split second, and then moves through as a specific format. So it's going to format, which is different to language, because language fill missing spaces in frequency between areas in language. So we're looking at then, when you see the movie, hopefully it does. Nope, it's not doing it. Oh no, there it is. She is then able to bring the frequency resonance out of herself and utilize a degree of pattern recognition. And that means that she's able to not only perceive and recognize the patterns, but also she's able to shape what we see and what we hear. It is synthetically made, but it is being pushed through to her as a human download, which is why her eyes change, but she's also able to change her outward appearance, meaning that she can shapeshift. Now, we know that our DNA is made up of thousands of junk DNA that most scientists don't even know what half of the junk DNA is about. It is possible, if not probable, that that junk DNA is off-world DNA, because there is a theory that there was 100, there was like 60 or 70 individual races that agreed to share their DNA with the human beings on Ceton, or this world called Terra, Earth, whatever you'd like to call it. And this could be where she's activated, because all people I've spoken to that are able to do star language or speak star language or have been utilizing activating light language, they're all able to activate their cells and their DNA. Also, we do see that with the changes in the eyes and the eye color, it is specifically key that at that particular time, when the eyes are having a transmission, I call it a transmission because when I get transmissions from the star being that I've been speaking to since I was 3, so over 61 years, there's always a period just before the transmission where I lock out. I get a particular sound. Sometimes I get a smell, sometimes not, but it's the sound. And it's the sound of the block, and then comes through. My eyes do change. Well, I can't see it from my side, but my partners over time, over the last years, they've all said, you know, your eyes go completely different, and it's almost like I can't reach you, I can't talk to you, because it's like you're not there. And then all of the information, the downloads and the transmissions that come through are very specific. And I will say, all of the transmissions have been positive, they've been helpful, they've been kind, considerate, compassionate. There's never been anything nasty. There's never been anything said to me during these transmissions that would make me fearful or would not help in some way, and both help me, my family, my children, and other people's families and children too. So with this here, we can see that with the downloads and the transmissions, the eyes, the psychoacoustics, the pure sine wave, the speech sequences are absorbed. If you look at the way his eyes are, although it's obviously makeup, etc., there is still the aspect in the film where he's leading you to the point of saying, well, there is a level of psychoacoustics here, but it's actually being transmuted intelligently by the human being, but it's also being reviewed and translated by the human being. And the eye colors and changes in the eyes is the key. That's what we look for, is what happens. Does the pupil dilate? Is there a change within the eyes? Because there is a different frequency and different energy that's coming through. Also, the same aspect is when you look at, and this does come up a lot in the movie as well, there is a level of requirement for individuals to bring and push exactly the same energy and frequency for crop circles. So there is that same frequency. And when you look at the cropping, and when that does, there is a particular type of frequency that whooshes around the fields, and it becomes really obvious that whatever it was is making those crop circles. So we've got a number of different types of aspects which are showing, look at life differently. Look at the way you perceive what is happening. Not all of the crop circles are made by individuals walking with planks. Yes, some are, but not all of them. So we go on to now the other aspect where we're talking about not only light language, but we're also talking about how we can perceive and what happens with that energy that comes down, and how individuals are able to transmute that energy. And that is where you've got the language of spirit, but then it's more across your body, and part of that light inside yourself will allow you to pull down that energy from Source Creator. And this frequency is also showing things like sacred vowels, sacred areas, and it also shows the connection between us as human beings. It's very unique. So part of the ancestral link, I think, is to understand that the earth values right now is at not a difficult phase, but is at a phase that we need to be aware that our human beings are changing. We're changing rapidly. There is extra light coming from the sun. We are changing our way of thinking. We are awakening. We are moving from this body that we have now into a purely crystalline area. The next 1,000 days across the earth realm is going to be key. And I think I can take my hat off to Spielberg for taking the leap and jumping into producing a movie of this type with full knowledge that he could actually just have a strip taken off him, as if to say, for goodness sake, mate, what are you doing? But I don't think that that's what's going to happen. I think that see in the trailer, angels with their little light and their candle, wanting more information, wanting what's actually going on out there. I think he will be igniting the thirst for knowledge and thirst to start the ball rolling. And Eric can hear 3D realm, and he did, and all of his books and everything he's questioning. The one thing he did do extremely well, he questioned and questioned and questioned. He questioned every area. We've also got now in the UK, we've got the ancient burial mounds that were set up in a particular way. But we've got one particular burial mound here in the UK that has been approved, that archaeologists can go into the burial mound, and they've got that. I think they've taken out, I think it was 4 or 5 like key pieces, which is absolutely amazing. So, you know, I think when we start looking at this particular movie, Disclosure Day, there's a lot of questions that will come up from that movie, and I will do another part review after the movie has come out. But I think that there is going to be a wave of disclosure. There's going to be a wave of individuals that are going to start waking up and are going to be able to look at things differently. And it is possible that you listening today and you in the chat, you might be one of the people who's able to enable that light language to come through you, to enable that star language. And even if it is clicks or a particular type of song, there are many different types of beings and languages across all the universes. Many have been visiting our planet. And it's time now for us to step up and say, well, if they're here and they're here for our greater good and they're here to help, they won't be here to save us, but they will be here to help and teach. Then let's get on with it. Let's get on with it. Let's get going. It flows through all of us. The light and the energy, that's exactly what it is. It's a frequency. It's a frequency of light. It's the consciousness. It's a consciousness from light source. Doesn't matter who you follow or what you believe in. It all comes down to one thing. It comes down to light. Hold on to your light. Keep taking light and be the best you can be in this lifetime. Thank you all for being here today. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm going to do a part 2 on Thursday, and then we'll do a part 3. Lots of just questions and answers, and that's all it's going to be. Lots of questions and answers. And hopefully you'll join me and come and ask whatever it is you need to know. If I know the answer, I'll tell you. If I don't, I'll tell you that too. Okay? Okay. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to the mods, and thank you to all the support always. I hope that a little bit of difference of how you're going to perceive this Disclosure Day movie. But there's a lot more between heaven and earth than meets the eye. So have a good evening, have a good day, and I will speak to you on the other side on Thursday. Bye for now.